Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. So today I'm doing another highly requested one, which is how to fill out the experiences section of the AADSAS application. I've gotten a lot of questions recently about how to fill that out. I know that a lot of you are probably still filling out your application right now and still working on it. So I just want to give a few tips and tricks. Again, everybody fills them out differently, but if you wanted to just see an example, I've got one for you. So I'm going to go ahead and screen record myself going through AADSAS so you could see it side by side, and then I will just talk about it as I go along. Okay, so we're going to get started here. I'm going to go ahead and screen record. So here on the AADSAS application, I'm in the My Application portion of the application, and when you click on supporting information, that's where you put in your evaluations, experiences, achievements, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on experiences. So here you can see all of my experiences, since what I did was I just kind of duplicated my application. I don't have that many. I know some people have, tons and tons and tons of experiences, but you can see here my list of my pre-health experiences. I've got nothing to hide. I want to be transparent with you all. So these are all my experiences here listed. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add some stuff to this. So let's go ahead and add an experience. Okay, so the first thing they ask you is experience type. Academic enrichment, dental experience, dental shadowing, virtual shadowing, person, employment, extracurricular activities, research, and volunteer. So for academic enrichment, this is probably the one that people have the most questions about. I went into the AADSAS info portion and I kind of looked into what they meant by academic enrichment. So for myself, if you go back to my experiences, you could see here that I have under academic enrichment, one of my experiences is attending the Greater New York Dental Meeting. I attended that 2 years in a row. I guess those are the only ones for me. So the academic enrichment portion, for me, I have the 2 times that I attended the Greater New York Dental Meeting. So because I live in New York City, I have access to this dental convention, and they specifically had pre-dental events where they had representatives from schools come talk to us, current students come talk to us, as well as a couple of practicing dentists come talk to us about their fields. We had, both general dentists and specialists come certain years, and it's just a nice way to meet your fellow pre-dental students, mingle and get to know one another and get to talk to admissions representatives, which is really, really invaluable. So that's what I put under academic enrichment. So let's go back to adding an experience. So the other ones. So dental experience could be anything to do with the dental field, right? So for me, what I have as, I guess you can say, is both volunteer and the dental experience is I did a pediatric outreach program at the New Life Health Center in Elmhurst Hospital in Queens. And what we basically did was in the waiting room of the hospital where parents were bringing in their children for their regular visits or their checkups or exams, while the parents were in the waiting room, we would go ahead and conduct kind of like surveys of common misconceptions and things that parents of young children often don't know that lead to problems in their children's oral health. So this I would consider both a dental experience and volunteer. I did end up putting it as a volunteer experience, but this is something where you can see it's not necessarily in a dental office, but it is considered a dental experience because it relates to dentistry. But in that case, dental experience could be anything where you are doing something related to the dental field. Now, obviously, shadowing is pretty self-explanatory. Most of you know what shadowing is. It's when you follow a doctor or doctors around, or any healthcare professional, right? You follow them around, you see what their day is like, you see how they see patients, you observe their interactions, you may even be able to observe procedures depending on the office, and sometimes, even when you're shadowing in a dental office, you may be able to assist. But again, those are considered shadowing opportunities because shadowing just basically means you're their shadow for a day. You walk around with them and you see how their day is and what they do in a typical work day as a dentist. This is one of probably the most valuable experiences that you can have as a pre-dental student, mostly because they really want to know that you are aware of all of the things that go into this field and how difficult it is, and to see, all aspects of it and really be in the thick of it and just try to understand what it's like to work as a dentist in a, whether it's a busy practice or if they're working in a multi-specialty practice, or if it's a dentist, let's say, working in a hospital. Those are all different ways that dentists work. And so the admissions committees really want to see that you've had enough shadowing experience because they want to know that this is actually something that you want to do. And also, another thing when it comes to shadowing is that if you spend a lot of time shadowing a particular dental specialist, like an oral surgeon or an orthodontist, a pediatric dentist, those things are great, but they really want to see that you've spent time shadowing a general dentist, because most schools, regardless of what you may hear, do not want you to come in with a set specialty in mind. They want you to be open to exploring, and most schools, they don't train specialists. Most schools train general dentists, so they don't want you to come in there and say, oh, I really want to, be an orthodontist or an oral surgeon, and I spent this many hours shadowing an orthodontist, and then, that's it. So they really don't like to see that, just because they want you to be open to different opportunities. They want you to be open to learning. And most importantly, you should have more hours shadowing. You should have clocked more hours shadowing a general dentist than other specialists. Okay, so let's go through. So employment, obviously, employment is something that you get paid for. It is something that is obviously you getting compensated in one way or another, whether it's work study or just a job that you have. If it's a research position, that's paid. If you're an intern, that's paid. All of those would be considered employment. And it's just anywhere that you've worked that you can put in. Obviously, for the AADSAS application, you want to put in relevant experiences. So, if you spend 4 years working as a cashier, if there's a way that you can put it that relates to your journey to dentistry, then yes, I would say put it. But in general, those things that are not relevant, I would leave off your AADSAS application. Same thing where I didn't mention in the shadowing part is if you were considering other dental specialties, or other medical specialties, and you spend time shadowing a physician or a PA, or you worked as an EMT, those things are really not things that you want to focus on your AADSAS application, because then dental schools don't want to know that, they don't want you to think that other, medical specialties really exist. They want you to be focused fully on dentistry, fully immersed into it, and they don't want you to have had this in your past, or they don't want to hear about it at least. I would say if you spend extensive amounts of time shadowing a physician or being in an emergency room or any of that, it's all great, and it's a great experience to maybe mention a line or two in your personal statement and say how that ultimately led you to dentistry. But I would say for the experiences section, probably leave those hours off. And I know it kind of sucks because you probably spent a lot of time doing it, and I'm sure you learned a lot, but for the purposes of dental school, they really want to know that you're fully focused on dentistry, and that's really what you want to do. Okay, so now going back to the other categories. So there's extracurricular activities, research, and volunteer. So extracurricular activities would be something like if you have a club or some sort of association at your school. Let's say you're a member of the pre-dental club, or there's some sort of pre-health club at your school, or if there's any kind of other clubs or activities, those are things that you can put under extracurriculars. And then obviously research is if you're doing research in a lab, if you have some sort of project that you're working on, whether that's through your university or through a separate institution, that would be considered research. And then volunteer is anything where you have given your time and you did not get anything in return. You just kind of put in your time and did something for the good of others. That would be considered something that is a volunteer experience, like if you helped organize a neighborhood cleanup, or if you helped in a soup kitchen, or if you prepared food for the homeless, or if, you helped assist in terms of patient transitions in a clinic or a hospital or something like that. It's just anything, and again, volunteering doesn't necessarily have to do with the dental field. It could be any kind of volunteering. Usually they want to see that you do a certain amount of community service, because they want people who care more than just about themselves. They want people who care about others, who have experience, just dedicating their time and not seeking anything in return, and that would be your volunteer section. So now, here is where you fill out the contact information of the organization. So where you would put the name of the organization, where it's located. You don't have to have a full address. Sometimes there are no full addresses. Obviously, if you did something like virtual shadowing, it's up to you if you want to put an address. But the one thing that is non-negotiable, right, is your contact info for whoever can confirm that you actually did this. Now, if you put in an experience and you know that on the bottom, right, where it says release authorization, may we contact this organization, you would never put no, because that means that it was a futile experience. If there is nobody in the organization or somewhere where they can verify that you were there, how many hours you were there, how long you worked there, what your position was there, I would say leave that experience off. They may or may not contact the organization that you are listing. I mean, for most of my experiences, I don't think that they contacted whoever I put down. I put down the dentist that I work with because I shadowed them, and they were not reached out to, and they didn't really check. But the schools want to have that option, and you want to be honest with yourself and say, okay, so was someone aware that I was doing this? Is there someone that can vouch for me? Was there someone that can vouch for me? And then if there is, then great, put their information down. So that's where you would put it right here under supervisor. You would put their first and last name, and then you would put obviously their number or email, or however way they can reach them if they choose to reach out to them. But the one thing you want to do is you want to ask this person first. You want to reach out to them, shoot them a quick email, say, hey, I'm filling out my application to dental school. Regardless of how many years ago this was, you need to go to them and say, hey, I'm filling out my application. Would you be okay with me putting you as the contact person if they reach out to verify that I have completed this experience? Particularly with things like volunteer and shadowing, they may or may not, like I said before, they may or may not check. But one, you want to give the person a heads up if they are going to reach out to them. And two, you want to have someone who's reliable and who knows you and who can vouch that you actually completed this experience. For experience start date and end date, so if this is something that you're still doing, this is where you put current experience. And in that case, if you see, then the end date will actually become non-mandatory, which means you don't have to put in an end date if you're still participating in this activity. The start date, you can just approximate. Obviously, if you don't remember, you did this like 3 years ago, you don't remember when you volunteered, just approximate, put in the approximate amount of time. And then when you reach out to whoever, the person that is vouching for you that you did this with, just double check with them. Maybe they remember, maybe they have it written down on record somewhere. And if they don't, just make sure that you're on the same page. Let's say you did it sometime in June, and you put down June 1st, just let them know, oh, hey, I'm putting your name down, and I also put down that I started June 1st, just to make sure that you're both on the same page, just in case they do end up checking with the person who was supervising you. So then, experience details. This is where you put in what you did and your role and how you contributed. So in this case, right, title is just, if you're volunteering, it's just volunteer. If it's just for shadowing, I just put observer. And then for recognition, right? So recognition here is important. So here you can actually select several categories. So there's compensated, there's received academic credit, and then there's volunteer. So for one of my experiences where I was an intern at a dental pulp stem cell bank, and it was considered an internship, but it was also considered my research. But because I was compensated, on the very top in the category, I put research. And then when you scroll down, I also put that I was compensated and that I received academic credit, because I did. Through my school, I was able to get credit for my internship. So I put down both of those things. So you put in your title at the job, you write down what you did, average weekly hours. Again, if this was years ago and you don't remember exactly the number, you can always approximate and just make sure that you give the person who's vouching for you a heads up of how many hours you wrote down, just so that there's no miscommunication, mismatch. Obviously, again, if someone was supervising you, they probably have a record of how many hours exactly you did. So just make sure to reach out and just check for sure. Here, you would put in the average weekly hours. Let's say you did 12, right? And then you do number of weeks. Let's say that was 20. And then it automatically will calculate the number of hours for you. Okay? And then the description, right? So the description is where you have 600 characters to describe exactly what you did here. Now, the one thing that you don't want to do on the AADSAS application is just say observed, assisted. These are all very basic descriptions of what someone does, but you want to be using verbs that are dynamic, like contributed, or created a new filing system for the office, or served as a liaison for patients and doctors, something like that, rather than just writing observed, assisted, helped, things like that. you want to kind of get creative with it and try to use more dynamic, more actionable verbs to describe what you actually did. I would say the way that I wrote in my experiences section and how I laid out the paragraphs, I didn't really write in full sentences. I kind of just wrote it like a resume description, obviously in keeping with grammar rules and not having any mistakes in there. But I basically wrote it like you would write a job description on a resume of your role in this particular position. You just want to make sure that you are not only writing exactly what you did, but sprucing it up a little bit as well. So you would write what you did, and then you would kind of go through and say, okay, so how do I kind of make this a little bit more interesting? How do I make it clear what exactly my contribution was, right? You want to make sure that you're not only writing what you did, but how what you did either helped or improved something, or contributed to something, or how you added to wherever you were working, right? You want to show your impact through how you write about your position. It's not just what you did, it's the effect of what you did and the effect that it had on the organization or wherever it was that you had this experience. So that's my tip here. And again, at the very bottom, right, you never check no, you always check yes. You do not want to write that they are not able to reach out to some organization, because that is going to be a red flag. If you're writing about an experience and you're not allowing them to reach out and double check just in case that you actually completed it, that's a red flag. And it would be a red flag to anybody, even like on a job, let's say on a resume, if they ask you for references and you're not able to provide them, that's also a red flag. Okay, so that's basically what I would say is how in general to fill out the experiences section. So now I'm going to actually take you guys through my own experiences and how I wrote about them, and just show you what I wrote and what I would have done differently, and just talk you through the rest of my application. Okay, so here is where I will take you through a few of my own experiences and just kind of give you an example. So I'll show you my example of what I wrote for a dental shadowing experience, for a volunteer experience, and for research experience, because those I think are the most common that most people will have. So I'm just going to go back to my application and let's see. I'm going to go to my dental shadowing experience. So I went to dental shadowing and I did in person, right? I put down the address, the organization, I put down the contact information of the person that was supervising me. And if you look, I put in my start date and end date, and then I put volunteer, average weekly hours. So here, I wrote, observing and assisting the dental assistant in day-to-day operations, helping turn over patient rooms before and after procedures. So this is something that I actually wish I changed on my experiences section. This is exactly what I wrote and submitted. I wish I had written more. I would say here is where you can write something along the lines of, what kind of procedures did you witness? What were you able to observe? Were you able to see mostly restorative procedures? Were you able to see surgical procedures like implant placement or sinus lifts or bone grafting or things like that? What kind of dentist did you shadow? Were they a general dentist? Is it a multi-specialty practice? So that's where I wish I had written things differently. I wish that I had written more about the procedure types that I saw and what kind of dentist that I was shadowing, because during my interview, you know, when I was asked about my shadowing opportunities, my interviewer was actually very impressed that I was in a general dentist office where they were also doing implants and surgical procedures and things like that, because he was saying that it's important to understand the scope of just what a general dentist can do, and the fact that a general dentist can place implants and do all of these surgical procedures, and that it was a great thing that I was able to observe those things while I was shadowing. So I would say the one thing that I would change about this right here is that, one, you know, you don't get a lot of characters, but I would say try to put the specific kinds of procedures that you were able to witness, the kind of dentist that you were able to shadow, a little bit more about what their day-to-day was like, and what you, if you were able to contribute, if you were able to assist or help with anything, make sure to write that as well. Okay, so let's go back. So let's go to my research opportunity. So my research opportunity was a little bit different. It's not a wet lab, it's a different kind of research. Where it's a dental pulp stem cell banking company. So we mostly did research on the different applications for dental stem cells. We didn't actually conduct the research in the lab. We more so compiled the information, and my job was to put it out for patient education. So this is how I wrote about that experience. So I wrote, collecting information from specific journals and research publications about mesenchymal and dental pulp stem cell research and clinical trials for patient education, publishing weekly blogs, creating informational YouTube videos regarding stem cells, and so on. So this one is actually, I think, a good one. I gave a very clear description of what I've done. I talked about things that are definitely different, that not everybody has done. I made sure to highlight things that they could actually, if they were interested, they could actually look up. So I mentioned the fact that, we created informational YouTube videos regarding stem cells and regenerative medicine. So my company actually did put out these videos for patient information, and they actually are on YouTube. Fun fact, if anyone wants to see them. And so if they wanted to and they were curious enough, they could in theory look up the Dental Pulp Stem Cell Bank, and they would be able to find those informational videos that we've put out, and I was actually in them over the years, that were there to educate patients and provide more information. So this one I think is a good experience and how I wrote about it. And as you can see, I put two categories here. I put that I was both compensated and that I received academic credit, because both are true. I was paid for the job, and also I received academic credit from my institution, because my major allowed me to convert a certain number of internship hours into either 2 credit or a 3 credit class, which was pretty cool. Let's do a volunteer position. Okay, so this is something that I did at my school. So I volunteered to be a peer group leader, which is similar to kind of a teaching assistant for my biochemistry professor, to help out with recitation sections, which were held once a week, and they were 1 hour long, and they helped students answer questions that they had for class, study and review in small groups. And so as a peer group leader, I would be sort of the upperclassman who had already taken the class and was there to help with one of the smaller groups to answer questions regarding biochemistry, regarding the course content, and help them review for exams. So here you can see I wrote, providing guidance and academic support to biochemistry students to review class content and prepare for class exams, creating detailed review strategies and individual assistance. So for this one, sorry, excuse the siren. I live in New York, it's pretty loud. Okay, so here, I think this is a short and sweet description of my job there. It's exactly what I did. I provided guidance, I created review strategies, and I sort of tailored my approach to each student. And so those things are the ways that I contributed in my volunteer position. Obviously, I was not paid for it. I did receive academic credit, 1 chemistry credit at my school for being a peer group leader. But again, it was just something that I wanted to do, not only because it helped the students, but also because it helped me. Because at the time that I was being a PGL, I myself was studying for the DAT, and some of the biochemistry that is part of the bio section on the DAT was what I was keeping fresh in my mind, because I had just reviewed it in order to help my group mates in the biochemistry section. So not only did it help them, but it also helped me review. So this was a mutually beneficial experience, and this is exactly how I wrote about it. So if you can see my other experiences, I have a few more. There's a couple more volunteer experiences that I have. There's a couple more shadowing experiences that I have. So those are all the different ways that I've written about my experiences. I would say if I could go back, I would add on to my shadowing experiences and write more about what kind of procedures I observed and what I was able to actually see and do in those positions. But somehow, these experiences worked. So learn from my mistakes, don't do what I did, and I hope that you guys could learn something from this video. I know it's a bit long, but if you've stuck around, thank you for sticking around. So that's basically my shtick. If you have any other questions about what my experiences were and how I filled them out, please feel free to let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about an experience that you have and you're not sure how to input it into the AADSAS application, also let me know. I can give you an example of how I wrote about it. But this is just what I did and what worked for me, and some of the things that I did and I didn't like that I wish I could change. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'm glad that you guys are finding it helpful. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe down below, because I'm trying to be more consistent with posting. I'm going to be posting weekly uploads, usually on Thursdays every week. Next week, I'm either going to try to post my day in the life of a dental assistant video or actually a moving vlog, because I'm moving into my apartment that I'm going to be living at for school. So that's also all very exciting, but we'll see which one I get done with first. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!